talk about why SAP HANA on the cloud and what the key forces are behind that. So if you think about what we just spoke about, you need a certified hardware from specific vendors to be able to run HANA. There are fairly specific data communications around this, and also, of course, the data needs to be optimized between the hardware and the HANA software. And this is all very time-consuming, requires a high level of skill, and is fairly costly to put this on-premise in an installation on-premise. So there have been a number of, or there are a number of offerings and services of having SAP HANA on the cloud as a PaaS or platform service. And one of the most popular ones, or one of the ones that is most well known, is SAP HANA 1, which is hosted by AWS or by Amazon. This is essentially an offering in the public cloud, and where SAP and Amazon provide the HANA database as well as a studio, which is an administration type tool, and you are able to use this particular service as pay-as-you-go. It provides you with a 60 gigabyte compressed data instance of an AW instance on a Linux machine, and the cost is fairly steep relatively to some of the other services that Amazon does provide. It's around about $349 per hour, all in all. And the objective here is to provide the user with the ability to create native applications or deploy existing applications using HANA. Another particular service that is offered is what's called SAP HANA Enterprise Cloud. This is mainly geared to large corporations or large consumers of data. And again, it is a platform offered in the cloud by SAP and quite a number of other partners. Anyway, I believe up to 20 different partners now do provide an enterprise cloud. One of the most famous is VirtuStream, as well as SAP themselves. So this is a private cloud offering, and the actual user of this particular cloud offering has to have purchased the SAP HANA license. So it's really just a PaaS type offering, and then the user would be able to run any of the applications like SAP ERP, BI, and any other applications that they need to run on HANA. And of course, it is a monthly fee that is charged for this private cloud offering. Some of the other type of offerings that are enterprise type cloud offerings is SAP NetWeaver BW or Business Warehouse, and this is SAP's data warehouse that's run on HANA, and also there's a supply performance and visibility offering that is offered by SAP. So I'd like to just talk about the area that my paper, as well as this demonstration or this presentation, is mainly going to focus on, and that is the SAP HANA Cloud Platform. So what this provides is an ability to build web-based applications on HANA, and it uses Eclipse, the Eclipse IDE, as the way to develop Java-based applications, and it is also able to access on-premise applications, mobile-type applications, as well as social media-type applications. And the key service here is a free development license for one developer, and then of course there's some other license costs, which, as you can see, are relatively lower than the other services that we spoke about earlier. The interesting part about this is that the objective of SAP here is to promote the development of HANA-based applications and to start developing an ecosystem of these type of applications similar to what is happening in the Apple type environment. So let me just describe how this takes place. I'm going to just summarize this for you. As I've said before, this is all detailed step by step in the actual paper itself. But the first step here is to create your actual account, your free developer account. You go to account.hanatrial.ondemand.com, and there you can register. As you can see here, this is what the actual first screen looks like. And once you have registered, you then have access to the cockpit, and you also have a limited SAP HANA virtual machine where you can develop applications on. So once you get into the cockpit, once you've successfully registered, you have access to this cockpit or cloud portal. And what I would suggest is the first thing to do is actually go to the help facility, which takes you through the process of setting up Eclipse and how to deploy applications on the HANA virtual machine. Number two, I would suggest going to watch the video, which basically is a small application on called Hello World, which allows you to develop this application in Eclipse and then deploy it out on a server all within Eclipse. And that would be step number 3 for you to actually create that Hello World application. So what are the key steps? Number 1, what you need to do is download the SDK, similar to the Amazon SDKs and that are offered by Amazon. So what you do is download that first. That's step number 1. Number 2, you actually set up your HANA landscape. This all happens within Eclipse. And the 2 key steps there is, 1 is to point to where the SDK is located on the particular machine so that Eclipse can actually access that SDK. And then number 2 is to set up your actual environment. So what this does is it provides you with the ability to indicate your particular account that you just recently set up, and that gives you access to a virtual machine in the cloud. Number 3 is you go along, you create your Java project and servlet, and in this case a small Hello World servlet. And number 4 is you create the server directly in Eclipse using the server view in Eclipse. You click on that. It then takes you through a number of steps to create your server. Remember, we've already told Eclipse that we have access to a server, and it then allows you to deploy the actual application out onto the server. This is not a very complicated process and quite simple to do. Here you can see how the actual Hello World application has been run, and you can see there it's displaying Hello World, and at the bottom of the screen you can see there that it's actually running on the actual HANA virtual machine that's shown below there under the view, Eclipse view on the server. If you double click on this particular server, you will then actually gain direct access into the server, and there are a number of utilities and particular administrative type functions that you can do actually on the server. Let me just briefly talk to you about the NFL fantasy use case that I spoke about a little bit earlier. So what this is SAP and NFL have developed a football fantasy comparison tool. And let me just describe to you what that looks like, because this is a good example of a multi-cloud solution using both analytics and web applications. As you can see in this diagram, NFL has their own MySQL database, and this is out in the cloud. And what SAP has done in this case is they have deployed a series of servers, HANA servers, virtual machines out in their cloud, and they are able to access data that's been stored in the NFL cloud through the SAP Data Services application, and then that runs against a product called Lumira, which is a statistical application that allows you to calculate and process certain statistical functions, and that then gets displayed for the fan or user on NFL.com fantasy. So essentially what this is doing is providing the fan with real-time analytical comparison data as it's happening, or near real-time as it's happening, comparing players for any type of fantasy type football that they are engaged with. What's interesting as well, they've gone out and also use Weather Underground, which is a web service, and they go out and also use that in order to do the analysis as well as provide that type of weather related data and information to the user of this particular application. What I'd like to do now is also talk to you about the library application. So the library application is an application that uses HANA in the cloud to borrow and return library books. It demonstrates the use of persistent service, so developing a database on HANA. It also demonstrates the connectivity service to an open library web service, which is basically details of what that particular book is all about. It also provides a demonstration of the email service, which I'll describe in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. And also it uses MonGodB, which is a NoSQL document service or document repository that records images of the library user if they would like to load up their actual image up into their profile on this particular application. So here it provides you with a view of what is offered in this particular application. So as I described, it uses the SAP HANA connectivity utility to connect to a mail server, which would then either send and receive actual emails directly to the user's email account. As I mentioned, it creates a database of what you've borrowed and so forth. It also goes out and gets details from Open Library, and there's a document repository. The web front end is developed in SAP UI5, which is a development tool specifically for web front ends developed by SAP. So just to highlight the mail service, what this does is it uses the SAP connectivity service to connect to the web services and mail services. So it uses the Java Mail API that is out there and to send and receive emails within the program. And then it uses the connectivity service to provide the details or the actual properties that are required to actually access the mail server. Here is the Mail API. This particular piece of code here is in the library application, and once you downloaded this particular application, you will see you can go to this particular program and see how they have used the Java Mail API. Here, just to give you a brief demonstration on on how this connectivity service works within the actual Eclipse. You go in, you double click onto the server. The server comes up with a number of tabs. One of those tabs is called connectivity. You go into the connectivity, you bring up add, you add a connectivity, you put in session, you specify what type it is, and in this case it's mail. Then it comes up with a table where you provide some details around the actual mail server, in this case the password, etc., etc. This is for Gmail, and then you have set up the connectivity, and that's all that needs to be done in order to set up the actual mail service, and you are then able to receive emails to the users of your particular application. Lastly, let me just provide some insights on some of the key challenges that I had in actually developing and setting up this particular application, not actually developing, but setting up this application, and then some of the other key challenges around SAP HANA. One of the most interesting parts was that actually setting up the server within Eclipse was not very consistent, and the SDK didn't always show the server within Eclipse. So that was one area that I struggled with, to actually see that server on a consistent basis. The SDK version is evolving very rapidly, and therefore, even though the actual program, library application program that was downloaded from GitHub was fairly recent, that had to be modified in order to be able to use the latest SDK version. So that was something that one needs to do, and I think that's just a reflection of the actual rapid evolution of SAP HANA currently. The other thing is very few examples of code and blogs in the community. Obviously, due to the youth and the newness of this whole area, there's really not that much out there, and so that's something that when developing applications, in order to find samples of code or ways to resolve issues, is not that widespread, and therefore sometimes it's very difficult to find the right type of facilities to be able to resolve certain issues. The application library now is extremely limited. There's not much out there. And also, lastly, of course, the free development resources that are currently provided are not that extensive, and therefore it would be good for SAP to possibly consider expanding that, not only having it on their website or on their site, but also to possibly consider providing free type facilities through other partners, so as to be able to offer far more innovative and more types of cloud type services out there. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the time, and I hope this has given you a good introduction. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.